government notes. We're going to write down our definition. You can take it right from the PowerPoint, either while I'm going through it or afterwards on your own. You'll be able to get a copy. Write down our definition right in here. Then when you're done, write your own sentence using the word. It's got to be a sentence that shows me you know what the word means. So the legislative branch is a branch of government. That's not going to work. Okay? Sentence that shows me you know what you're talking about. So let's get this going. There are 10 words today. Luckily, we've gone over a few of them already. They should be pretty simple. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to be talking about the branches of the U.S. government today. First branch is called the legislative branch. The legislative branch makes the laws. Okay, so there's lots of different legislative branches in the United States. We have legislative branches in Detroit that can make laws for Detroit. We have a legislative branch for Michigan that makes laws for Michigan. And there's a legislative branch for the whole country called Congress. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And what they do is get together and they vote. So someone says, I think there should be no more speed limits. People should be able to drive as fast as they want all the time. And if they can get enough people to vote for it, then they can say, all right, that's the new law. There's no more speed limits. Or someone else could say, I think all the speed limits should be 20 miles an hour. And if they can get enough people in the legislative branch to agree, they can make that a new law. So legislative starts with an L, just like law. They make the laws. So what you're going to do is write down that definition, just a few words, in the our definition part of your notes. You can pause this here if you want, or you can go through the whole thing, finish it afterwards. Doesn't really matter. So that's one word, 10% of the way done. Next branch of government is called the executive branch. The executive branch makes sure that the laws that the legislative branch passed actually get carried out. And again, we have lots of different executive branches. We have a mayor in Detroit. That's an executive in the Detroit government. We have a governor in Michigan. And the governor is the executive of the Michigan government. And there's a president for the whole country. That's the executive of the federal or the national government. Okay? Legislative branch makes the laws. Executive branch enforces, makes sure that those laws get carried out. Okay? Pretty simple. Last of our three branches is the judicial branch. These are courts. The courts decide what the law means. They interpret the law. What does that mean? So one person could say, I think that the way this law is written, it says that my company shouldn't have to pay this particular new tax. And the government says, no, you're supposed to pay that tax. The company can go to the courts, the judicial branch, and argue their case. They could say, the way this law is written, our company shouldn't have to pay. And the government can say, nope, the way it's written, they should have to pay. The courts will read the law. They'll think about how the law is supposed to be interpreted, and they'll make a decision. Okay? We have courts in Michigan. We have federal courts. They're all part of the judicial branch of our government. Legislative makes the laws. Executive enforces the laws. And judicial, like a judge, interprets the laws and decides what they really mean. So we've already got our three branches done. And how long have we been doing this? Maybe 3 minutes? Checks and balances. This is something that you really need to know. So if you need to watch this part 3 times, do it. Checks and balances is a system set up in the U.S. government that limits the power of each branch. And over the course of the week, we're going to talk about what some of those limits are. But basically, checks and balances are there to make sure that one part of government can't take over and have total power. So we don't want the president, the executive branch, to be able to do whatever they want. We don't want Congress, the legislative branch, to do whatever they want. We don't want the courts, the judicial branch, to do whatever they want. We want all of these branches to be able to balance each other out. Okay? So that means there are some ways that the president can stop Congress if they want to do something. There's some ways the courts can stop the president if he wants to do something. That system is called checks and balances. It's a balancing act between the three different parts of government. Veto. Here's our first example of a check. Okay? The president, the executive branch, can say, I veto or cancel out a law that the legislative branch passes. So let's say the legislative branch passes a law that says there's going to be no more speed limits, everyone can drive as fast as they want. Well, the president doesn't like that law, and he can say, veto. I don't like this law, and we're not going to do it. Now, we're going to learn that there are some ways that Congress can get over a veto if they want to, and that's one of their checks on the president's power. So the president just can't just veto everything. But for right now, our vocab word that we're going to use for checks and balances, our example, is veto. The executive, or the president, can cancel a law that Congress passes if the president doesn't like it. We call that a veto. Congress. We're getting to some specifics, some words that you're going to be seeing over and over again. Congress is another word for the legislative branch of the national government in the United States. And there's two parts. You got to write these both down. It's a little bit longer than the other one, and it's a little more specific, but you need to memorize this part if you're going to understand what we talk about as we keep going. So there's two parts of Congress, and they both play a role in making laws. One is called the House of Representatives. One is called the Senate. House of Representatives gives bigger states more members. So California has the most members. Rhode Island doesn't have as many members. It's a tinier country, tinier state. The bigger your state, the more power you get, the more votes you get in the House of Representatives. Senate doesn't do it like that. In the Senate, every state is equal. It doesn't matter if you're California or Alaska. Everyone gets 2 senators. Okay? We'll deal with the specifics a little bit more as we keep going. But know that Congress is another word for the legislative branch, which means they do what? They make laws for the whole country. The president. The president for our country, for our national government, is the head of the executive branch. That means he does what? Enforces the laws. Makes sure that the laws that Congress passes get carried out. He also has some extra powers that the Constitution gives him, like the president is the commander-in-chief of the military. Congress doesn't get to tell the military what to do. The president has that power, and that's part of the executive branch. Hopefully you guys remember from last week, not every country has a president. What does Canada have? No, wait for it as if you guys could raise your hands. Anybody? They have a prime minister. So the president is the head of the executive branch in the USA. Other countries have different people who serve that same sort of role. Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the very top of the judicial branch. The Supreme Court has the final word on how a law is going to be interpreted. So if there's a new law that says no more speed limits, the Supreme Court can say, well, you're not allowed to make that law. That law violates the Constitution. They probably wouldn't. But let's say there was a law that said women can't drive. There's some countries in the world where that's true. If they tried to pass a law like that in this country, the Supreme Court would say, no, no, no. The Constitution doesn't let that happen. The Constitution says that you're not allowed to discriminate like that. Okay? So the Supreme Court is the top of the judicial branch. President, top of the executive branch. Congress, top of the legislative branch. Supreme Court, top of the judicial branch. And all of these 3 branches together make up a republic. The republic is the type of government that we have in the United States. The people that serve in all of those branches are in some way picked by the citizens, the people who vote. So citizens can vote for president. Citizens vote for their representatives or their senators. Citizens don't vote for the Supreme Court or for a lot of court positions, though they do vote for some judges. But the president who got picked by the people gets to appoint justices to the Supreme Court. So the people are in control, and they elect representatives, like republic representatives, people to go work for the government for them. So that they don't have to make all the decisions all the time. They can pick some leaders to make those decisions. So the US government is a republic. And our last word, just to do a quick recap, is kind of the opposite of a republic. What the United States doesn't have is a dictatorship. A dictatorship is where one person can do whatever they want. They can make any law they want. They can change the law anytime they want. If they want you thrown in jail, you're going to jail. If they want to have a war, you're going to war. Okay? That's a dictatorship. And the checks and balances system we talked about is one way that the United States tries to avoid having a dictatorship. There's no way for one person to take all power because we've divided up the power between 3 branches, and each one of those branches can push back against the other one. That's checks and balances. So there's our 10 words. Those are words we're going to keep seeing all week, and hopefully you guys can use that to help you finish up your notes. So notes are going to be due at the end of the day today, and we're going to have something fun for you guys tomorrow. And I will see you all soon.